Hello, everyone, and welcome to this interview. I'm Nicholas. I have the pleasure to host the interview with Paul. Paul is one of my very favorite students from the 2025 entrance exam preparation program because he put in so much work and he wants to share the story with you. And I'm very glad to have you here, Paul.
Yeah, so thank you, Nicholas. My name is Paul. I'm from Ukraine. And well, I've spent a lot of time working on this exam. I reckon around 900 hours. So I hope this interview will be valuable to you, especially if you're serious about the whole BBE thing about the WU and dream to move to Austria, to Vienna. So here we are. Yep.
So one of the most favorite question everyone asks in the beginning when they see such an interview is, why did you even decide to study in Vienna at WU?
So around the time I had to choose the university, I have some metrics, some aspects I looked at. I believe it was price, language I'm gonna study in, because at the time I knew English only. What is the ranking of this university? How far away it is from Croatia? Because as I mentioned earlier, I reside in Croatia, in Zagreb. And what are the career and job opportunities in general, even during the studies? And when I started checking Austria for universities, we used to know the most. It had everything, the ranking, the price, proximity, and also the campus is pretty cool. Like I fell in love with the campus, especially when I saw it for the first time in the real life. It was not a welcome day, it was an open day in March. I don't remember the year.
Mm-hmm.
I knew for sure I want to go to BBE, I want to go to WU, and it's the reason why I chose it, because everything I was looking for was as perfect as like it could ever be. So yeah.
Did you check out any other universities?
Yeah, I did. I checked some applied science universities first because a lot of my friends went to some applied science schools in some other countries, in Netherlands, in Italy, but I wanted to go to Austria. Then I actually was checking Estonia just for personal reasons. I just personally like Estonia. I also was checking Germany, which was pretty close, but I must admit it's more pricey than Austria regarding visa, universities, requirements. So it's the reason why I wouldn't say settled. I was okay with WU and really like the idea of doing my best together. So yeah.
I see. So you didn't get started at WU yet, but I'm sure it's one of the best decisions you have ever taken in your life because
Yeah, I'm
I
sure as
enjoyed
well.
really much. But to come back to your position like a year ago, what were your expectations? You knew it is gonna be pretty competitive. But how was it really? Like, could you elaborate on that?
Well, first I thought and I envisioned the exam itself in my head, and I based my expectations on the tasks in the BBE Insider, Nicholas's course I've purchased to prepare, and I thought it would be okay to pass. I thought I had the capacity and ability to do so. Also, I did some additional steps for visualization we're gonna cover in this interview, and it turned out to be pretty accurate. I mean, the exam itself. When it comes to competition, the only reason I was not so stressed is because I had a lot of time to prepare for it. I had 12 months. So I commenced my preparation in June 2024. And the exam itself was also, I don't remember the exact date, also was in the June, but 2025. So I thought if I put more work than other people, I would be at least slightly better. So it was the reason why I wasn't so afraid. Yet I also was able to build some, I don't know how to call it, models, also some mantras in head, how you could overcome the competition. Because I must admit, it's pretty intimidating. Even after all the hard work you're doing, you still have to keep in mind that it's 4,000 people competing for the place you want to take, you probably dream about, you sacrifice your time for.
I think it was about 6 to 7%, the acceptance rate in
And 6 to
2025, right?
7%. Yep. But also another thing which helped me to relieve my stress is that most of people, honestly, like the vast majority, do not even prepare as seriously as, well, they're supposed to. Some people don't know where the materials are. Some people don't look at topics. They just want to try it, which is, I mean, it's okay, but the probability of success is pretty low if you do it this way. If you prepare diligently as possible, as I did, I suppose.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I guess you wanted to mention the number of hours I've put in.
Like, you put in 900 hours. I can
900 hours.
remember back in June 2024, I saw you joined the program. I don't know, was it closely before the exam or closely after the exam, but whatever.
It was shortly before the 2024 exam, I suppose. Yeah.
Because I was like you joined the program 1 or 2 weeks before the exam. That's crazy. How do you want to cover all the materials in the course? No way. And when we had our first like onboarding call, you told me you're gonna prepare for next year, and it blew my mind because preparing 12 months in advance is like the longest I've seen at this point, and it paid off. You got in.
It actually paid off. Yep.
900
and, what I
hours.
want to mention is that, guys, you don't have to prepare as much as I did, because honestly, it was a bit too much. But it's just a friendly. It's getting harder to get in it each year. You have more people who are ready to put so much work, and probably more than me. I don't know, but probably I was not the most hardworking person. I don't know yet, because I didn't secure the first spot. I secured the 45th, I believe. Yeah, so you have to take it more seriously than you're taking it right now. Even though you can be serious about it, I just want to let you know that it shouldn't be your task, it should be your goal. It should be your dream to be there. Also, math materials are getting more complicated each year. So yeah, you should be really diligent about it. That's what I want to mention. Yep.
And what's important to highlight is your background. You said you went to an English school, right?
Yeah, it was American school, international American school, because I'm not in the States, I'm in Croatia, which was pretty useful for my language proficiency, English, even though I'm not as fluent now because I haven't spoken English the whole summer, but it was useful during the exam preparation because I was exposed to materials, articles with challenging vocab. I also had English exams, and it paid off. Yeah, it was really useful to have a good English because it's required. Yet I still must highlight that you don't have to go to an American school to be successful. You just have to know English.
But there's
Pretty
even
well.
a small disadvantage to it, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, the maths level in the
Yep.
American schools differ a little bit from the Austrian maths level, and especially the one in the entrance exam.
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to mention next. There was this one trade-off that even though language side of this whole idea to go to American school was pretty attractive, however, the difficulty, the contents were not really useful because, as I previously mentioned, I'm from Ukraine. I've covered all of those materials in Ukraine, so I didn't learn anything new, even though I really should have, because BBE exam covers way more materials than American school provides, so I had to learn it from scratch. However, if you're from a more standardized European school or gymnasium, you definitely have an advantage here because you are probably already familiar with some aspects of calculus, like derivatives or even integrals, even though they were not required this year. But I like, for some reason, I have a feeling that they will add integrals some year, probably.
Might be subject
Might
to
be so.
change.
Yeah, but like they were not covered this year and last year, and they have never been covered. But still, you're at advantage if you comprehend what it is. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, talking about that, like the hard skills, mathematics, English, economics, you also mentioned like mental models. So your mindset. You prepared months in advance, and it's a bit more difficult to prepare months in advance, like a year out, than just like 2 weeks, because, you know, you're progressing to the big day fast. How was it for you? How did you handle that? The emotions?
Yeah, of course, I must admit that it was pretty challenging, and especially the eternal tension you get because you cannot just relax. You have this date in mind that the exam is coming up, even though it's not soon. You just know you're preparing for it. You cannot stop, otherwise you forget all the materials. Yet one thing, I don't know how to call it, mental model, probably, which helped me is that I visualized my biggest fear. What if there is a person who is more prepared than I am? What if there is a person who is definitely going to take the first place? What are they going to do? What are they doing now? How are they studying? And if you think about it, and if you think you're thinking about all the aspects this person is better at, you can just replicate it and do the same. So, for example, when I was exhausted or just fatigued, I thought, okay, but the person who's going to be better than me, he's not fatigued. He's more, he's better at time management. He's better at relaxation or sleep. I should implement the same thing. Or he's exposed to more materials than I am. I should implement the same thing. And it really helped me, because otherwise, if you just do it randomly, isolated by yourself, it's really difficult, because one hard aspect of preparing in advance is that you have to do the same thing all over again multiple times. It gets repetitive, it gets tedious, it gets depressing, because you're not doing anything else besides for doing the same thing. But if you keep in mind that someone does the same and someone does it better than you, and you can do the same by replicating the same mindset or probably task they do, it can help you. It kind of, what it does is that it shifts the competitiveness against 4,000 people to just one person. It's much easier to think about this one person and compete against this person rather than against 4,000 people. So it's definitely the thing which helped me. Another thing is keeping up the passion and the interest during those months is just learning something which is not exam related, because one of the reasons why I want to get into WU, into BBE, I had a passion for math. I really liked math. But if you do it repetitively, you do it on purpose for something, you lose the interest.
It gets annoying, right?
It gets annoying, because it's not an interest anymore. It's like a part of lifestyle, a need. So I just learned something new I found to be interesting. For example, I had a statistics course at my school. I took it, even though it's not exam related. I found it to be interesting. I also took integrals. I mean, I learned integrals. It's not exam related, but it's interesting. It's pretty cool to know how to integrate. Also, some economics videos could be helpful on YouTube, not for the sake of the exam, but just to keep the interest up. You just see, okay, there is something new and it's interesting. And I'm pretty good in comprehending this concept. And it kind of gives you rest, but at the same time, you do not forget the concepts you've learned. So that's what I would advise if you are aiming to keep the interest up.
Love about your approach, Paul, is that you don't have the mindset of how many percent do I need to pass, but you're really trying to be at the top. You want to be the best, and you give your best to beat their best. And this is what's required, because in the end, you don't know how many percent you need to get in. You need to be better than the other applicants. And yeah, this is something you did great. I really appreciate that you figured that approach out yourself, and I will definitely preach that in the future because it's so important. Yeah, so you need to be in the 7 percentile or in the 6 percentile. The best people.
And I appreciate it. Yeah. And what I also wanted to mention is that thing that not only as I did, almost all the participants should take the same approach to aim not to just get in, not just to be good enough to pass, but to have this mindset of being as best as you can be, doing as best as you can, putting as much work as you can. Because otherwise, if I just prepared in a way where I'm just doing enough, just like not the best, but enough to pass, I probably wouldn't have passed, because it wouldn't have been enough. Because even though I've done all this work, I ended up at the 45th spot. Also, due to some of my mistakes and other stuff, but it also due to my success is due to the fact that I've tried my best, and yeah, it was my best shot. So you should take the same approach, because as I said previously, it's getting more competitive and harder. So you should be harder yourself. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
So talking about your success, which factors would you say contributed to this success the most? Like you did a whole bunch of things and it's difficult to implement them. But if you boil it down to like 3 things, what are those?
So I would say first thing is time. How much time you have before the exam? How many months? Because the strategy you take, the preparation strategy you take is vastly different, meaning it really depends on how many months you have before the exam. And the more time you have, the better you prepare. So the first prerequisite for success is time. The second is information. Are you exposed to relevant materials or no? Because you may have a year to prepare, but if you're doing the official booklet only, which is pretty good material to kick your preparation off, I used it myself, but I must admit it's not sufficient enough to pass. So even though if you're doing it for the whole year, doing the whole booklet, all the tasks, it's not relevant information. So you should expose yourself to relevant information, and the Nicholas course covers it well because it has all the BBE related tasks. You need to kind of understand the BBE language, as I like to name it. And the third one is effort. How much are you willing to give? How much time? How focused you're ready to be? So it's definitely effort. So time, information, and effort. If you have those 3, I think there is like almost no way you fail. If you do everything as diligently as possible, you have a lot of time and you practice relevant materials, there is no way. There is no way you fail, honestly.
To be honest, it was a tough year. It was a tough year for you and it was a tough time for many other people preparing for the exam. But just sacrificing a small period of time will give you so much joy, like in the long run. You will enjoy the studies a lot because you went to that university you wanted to go and you have the best opportunities you can possibly get. So in my view, it's for sure worth to chase that dream. Would you say your feelings align with that?
Yeah, definitely. Even though I've sacrificed pretty much a lot, it was really worth it. It was really worth it. The joy I got from the acceptance letter, the joy and the anticipation of moving to Vienna, definitely. Even though it took a year, 12 months, I missed a lot of things. It was worth it. And actually, you can catch up on them pretty quickly when it comes to some social events, people and stuff. You can do it during the summer. I've managed to do a lot of things during the summer. Definitely was worth it. So yeah, you will not regret it if you just go all in. It will be definitely worth it.
So did you implement like a specific study framework or what was your approach like?
I would break the whole study preparation into 2 stages. The first stage is getting to know the materials and the second is actually studying. So it was the way I did it. So first of all, I familiarized myself with all the official materials. Even though they're not relevant, they are a great material to kick your preparation
Building
off.
block, right?
Yeah,
The basis.
to just get to know whether or not there are topics you do not know. For example, it can be probability because it goes a bit more in depth than school materials at some schools. It may be derivatives, as you probably haven't covered it at school, like it was my case. So go over all the official materials. Also, I really would insist on doing tasks from those books, even though they are not really relevant, but still they're pretty good to just like, get this math fluency, which is pretty crucial for your success at BBE exam. The same applies to economics. Read the booklet once just to know what you're going to learn. And that's pretty much it for the stage 1. It actually took me 1 month or 2 months, like this summer when I purchased the course. First thing I did, I just went over the materials just to know what is going on. And the second stage, which is the backbone of the whole preparation, is when you actually practice, when you actually refine your knowledge, and when you actually go in depth and add the diversity to your skills and knowledge. So what I did, let's start with math. I used the BBE Insider to get to know the exam format. As I said, information is a prerequisite for success. You should know what you're dealing with. So I started with the BBE Insider course. I did all the tasks. Also, another thing which helped me to get more tasks, I used ChatGPT to generate more tasks in the format of the exam. And we'll talk about it in a second, because BBE Insider is a great source, probably one of the best to be.
I mean, it's important to mention it's not the Holy Grail.
It's not the Holy Grail.
It's pretty useful.
It's not the, I will foreshadow a bit. It's not the only resource you should use, because if you do only this course with no other additional resources, you will get used to the format of those questions, true false statements only. And if you bump into some new questions, you might find it to be challenging to answer them because you're not used to them.
And
yep.
I really believe you need to get that mastery and to understand problems from different perspectives. And this is just by exposing yourself with different kinds of problems. We're trying to implement those on the website, but it's an ongoing process. And of course, the internet has much to offer. If you're just short on time, the website is your go-to place. But if you have plenty of time, the website is your go-to place. You should also take other informations into account, as Paul just said.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up next. So it was the BBE Insider first, and then, as Nicholas mentioned, you need to gain mastery over like math in general, not just like within this course, because it's pretty common that you will get tasks that are not like the task on the BBE Insider, and I must admit that most people found the math part harder than they expected during the actual exam, and one of the reasons why is because they use the BBE Insider only. You just should expose yourself to more tasks which like have higher threshold of difficulty, Olympiadas, other school leaving certificates.
We're implementing this right now, thanks to your experience, Paul. So if you find these tasks, you know, this guy is the reason why they're here. So thanks for that.
Yeah, appreciate it. So yeah, in a nutshell, I did BB Insider, additional materials. I just did them in the order of topics, logic, algebra, so just like in the way it goes, nothing too crazy. I guess that's pretty much it about the math, because if I go really in depth about it will take a lot of time.
We could.
I mean, also, I have my own notes, what I wanted to say about because what I've outlined about the math is the plan, how I prepared. I also want to mention the way you should actually do your work. Because, okay, you know what you're going to do, you have the materials, but how you're getting the work done. And what I found is that some part of those 900 hours I've put in, I kind of wasted them because that work was not really of a high quality. Because especially when you deal with long time frames, the work can get pretty repetitive and you can get less invested in it. So I've put 3 principles you should use during your work to just stay as efficient as possible. So one of it is presence, the second is focus, and the third one is time. So I'll explain what it is in a minute. So what I mean by presence is that you are mentally present while doing the tasks. You are not thinking about anything else. You just you see the tasks, you think about the tasks. That's it. When it comes to focus, you may see the tasks and think about the tasks, but you may leave your working space, do some random stuff, which why you should also have focus. Just sit. Doesn't have to be for a long period of time. It can be just like half an hour. Sit, do nothing, but just sit in front of your computer for half an hour, doing those tasks, think about those tasks. And time, try to finish tasks in a timely manner, meaning try to actually keep in mind that you have time. You have time which is running out. You're not running out of time during the exam. And the faster you can do the tasks, also being correct, the better. Because sometimes what I had is that I'm doing the tasks, but I'm not trying to be fast. And it's not really efficient. If you're just looking at the screen and you're solving for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even though you have to be fast. So this way I was able to refine my work and make most of my hours be as efficient as possible. And the next thing I wanted to highlight,
There's something I want to add to it. You talked about being present in the moment and about being focused. I know the issue when you have this kind of monkey mind, as the Buddhists call it, where you think about all different things. What works for me is that you take a piece of paper and you write down everything you think about. So such that you can say to yourself, you have it on the piece of paper, you'll think about it afterwards. And you push it away. So like mind dumping, kind of.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty great strategy, I must admit. Yeah. I also did journaling to kind of mitigate the effect of this monkey mind. Sometimes I did meditation when I had time, but it can get pretty stressful, and it's the reason why I wasn't really consistent at it. But like, as long as you keep it in your mind, your workflow can be more efficient. Just even if it's by like 20%, it's still pretty great upgrade for your workflow. And another thing I want to talk about is how you should navigate your mistakes, because one thing also which kind of made me less motivated and was kind of daunting for me is the mistakes I've made. Because, well, imagine you're putting hundreds of hours into the work, yet you still make mistakes. You are not perfect still. And I find it to be pretty tedious, unless I recognize that there is a way to work with it. And mistakes is actually the reason why I was able to be so fluent at math, if it's possible to say so. So what I recognize is that there are 3 types of mistakes you can make during the exam, during the studies, like anywhere, even during your work. The first layer of mistakes, so to say, is probably the mistake you're afraid of the most. It's the skill mistake, so to say, is when you have a problem and you do not know how to solve it. You just don't have the capacity to solve it. Is the first type of a problem, because it's still a mistake, even though like you haven't done a mistake, but it's still a mistake. It's still like false because you haven't answered it. You don't know how to answer it. The second layer of mistakes is theory mistake, is when you know how to solve it, yet you apply a wrong theory to it. For example, there is a task with a derivative, yet you apply a wrong formula to it. Even though you know how to solve it, yet theoretically you are not correct. And
choosing the wrong path. Choosing the wrong solution path.
Yeah, choosing the wrong solution. Yeah, exactly. And the third one is the most tedious, so to say. It's what I call like a silly mistake. When you know how to solve it, you chose the right path, but you just typed a wrong number. You've overlooked something, a comma or a sign, and probably is the reason why I made most of my mistakes is due to the fact that I was not attentive enough. And as soon as I recognize it, there is a way to deal with all of those kinds of mistakes. We've kind of covered the skill mistake, because if you're exposed to as many materials as possible, the better you are at just being able to solve something. So we got it covered, and it will be implemented on the BBE exam platform. The second mistake is just solved by rehearsing what you've learned, like the theory, just knowing the theory well. What I forgot to mention is that during my practice, what I did before doing a practice, I've also did the blurting of each theoretical part of each topic. If you know what blurting is, it's when...
Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so blurting is when there is an article or a chapter you want to repeat. What you're doing, you're taking a piece of paper, which is essentially a piece of paper so that you can write it with your hand, not type it with your fingers. You write everything you remember, everything you can think of, and then you write additionally what you forgot when you peep into the chapter.
That's a very good learning strategy.
That's what I did. That's what I mostly did for economics. It was like 90% of what I did for economics. And I also did it for all the math theory parts, just to keep it in mind so that I could avoid this theory mistake. Because most of the times I did theory mistakes is when I skipped this theory rehearsing. When I didn't rehearse the theory, I forgot the formula, and it happened. And the third mistake is just pretty much doing as much math as possible, which remember that is silly mistake. Because even though I spent so much time, I'm still making silly mistakes. I'll make them
Stress
all the time.
management is helpful with that, but we will talk about it afterwards,
Yeah,
right?
we'll talk about later. Stress management and just also doing as much math as possible. Because if you do it this way, you will have such a feeling that, okay, there is a formula or tasks, and I tend to make a mistake in this part of calculation. I tend to mistake in this final step. I tend to make mistakes, for example, with derivatives. So I will be extremely careful with it, and there will be less probability that there will be a mistake. Yeah.
I want to comment on that a little bit. You said regarding the silly mistakes, you know where you made or where you're prone to make mistakes. And to get to this point, it's very important to revise your calculations. So you don't calculate something and, okay, it's wrong, but you need to search for the error. Where does the error come from? You need to correct yourself. And otherwise, you don't get to this intuition you're required to find the mistake easily. And another thing I want to catch up on is blurting. So basically, it's active retrieval. You're actively retrieving the materials from your head. And this is a very, very powerful method. It's way better than rereading, because reading certain materials over and over again, introduces kind of false fluency. You're reading the materials and you feel like, okay, I understand it, but you might not be able to come up with it by yourself. And this is where blurting comes into place, because this, in combination with reviewing the things you just noted down to the actual materials, helps you detect knowledge gaps. So this way you know where to improve yourself on. You need to know what to study in more depth. And this is a super powerful learning strategy. And before rereading anything, you should start with that. Having talked about this, what I want to say, putting it into a nutshell, is that not only the materials matter, what you learn, but also how you learn it, the learning strategies, the approach. So it's a combination of that makes you successful.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a summary of what I wanted to convey. Yeah, that's right.
So exam taking frameworks, and now we talked about studying frameworks. How about exam taking frameworks and figuring out what to work on during the exam? Is there any approach you can suggest?
Yeah, so it's an important point to talk about. The first one is, well, exam visualization before the exam, because most of people just visualize the comfortable part of answering the questions. But, well, I did myself. I tended to forego the possibility, like in my head, that I encounter a question I'm not familiar with, yet it will inevitably happen, because, well, it's impossible to guess all the answers in advance. I mean, all the questions in advance. So what I did is, first and foremost, when you see a section, what I mean by section is 5 true-false statements in one section, is instead of skipping the whole section, like for the end, because like it's too challenging, try to answer separate true-false questions, those true-false questions you are pretty familiar with. And this way, usually what I've noticed is that a challenging section for me was when there were 2 questions which were really hard and I couldn't almost like answer it. What I did those 3 I was good at, and then I moved to those 2 ones. And it's still important to guess the answers. You cannot leave anything blank. Even if you leave it like for the end of the exam, it's possible that you just won't have enough time. You will run out of time, so you still have to guess everything. Even if you're gonna come back to it, just put something. It's like, it will be not good. It won't be good to leave any like unmarked questions. And the reason I'm saying that is what I've noticed is previously when I encountered a challenging section with 5 true or false statements, I just skipped it, or I just guessed it, even though not everything was that challenging, only like 2 or 3 questions. So that's first and foremost. Just do what you can, guess what you can do, if simply put. And the next thing is what I call correctness management. As you probably heard, it's like from Nicholas, that it's not reasonable to just aim for some percentage on the exam, because you just have to do your best, as close to 100% as possible. Yet it's pretty useful to track the number of questions you feel uncertain about or you do not know, because it can be so that the number of those questions accumulate and you feel like you don't know anything. You feel like it's not enough, and you feel more stressed during the exam, even though it can be so that you are not familiar only with 17 of those questions. And the worst case scenario, if you answer 17 questions wrong, it's still 89 or 90%, which is pretty, like it's sufficient to get in. So what I did is during the exam, there are 2 tools, notes and sticky notes. So I use notes. It's just like a notepad, which you can use in each section. I just listed the number of questions I was nervous or I was uncertain about, or the questions I guessed. And this way I could just mitigate the stress. I knew, okay, it feels challenging, but I don't know, just like 20 of those questions. So there is a great possibility, probability, that I guess them and that I have a lot of questions right. So it's okay. I can keep, like, it's possible to continue. It's okay. Also, after the exam, it's pretty useful because me personally, I overthought each question I answered, and it was pretty useful to keep it in my head, like how great, like how correct I actually was. And this way, I was able to kind of calm down and be more chill about it, because I knew that, okay, only like 20 questions are probably off, but like it's still probably enough. Otherwise, I would think that it's like 40 or 30 and it's much worse. That's
So
what I want to.
it's important to set it into contrast, like approximately 165 statements per exam. And you said you don't want to leave any blanks. And that's correct, because there are no negative points. There are no point deductions for incorrect answers. So assuming you probably know the answer to like one part of the task, for example, 3 statements, as you mentioned, and you're not certain about 2 of those. If you guess 2 of those, the probability of having them correct is like 50%, because it's either true or false. So if you put that into contrast to the overall number of statements, 165, you will recognize it's not that big of an issue in the end.
Yeah. And it's important to keep in mind, because this way you can keep going with less anxiety and stress. So yeah.
There's no need to freak out. Like, it's okay to have some things incorrect. Nobody has like 100% correct on the entrance exam, as far as I know.
Yeah, even those people who ranked first, they are not 100% correct. Like, if I'm not mistaken, it has never happened that the person has 100%.
I don't know. Whatever. Moving on to the next part. We talked about the studying, the exam itself, but what happened next to your study process? What happened in your, like, more or less personal life regarding you as a person that was not studying at the specific moment?
Well, yeah. So it's a significant point we should mention is actually moving to Vienna, getting visa, doing all the paper. Or do you mean that, or do you mean the like life?
Like rather the lifestyle you had, you know? You talked about sacrificing like 12 months in the beginning, but you know, there's more to learning than the action of learning itself. So what helped you get better results and what to watch out for?
Well, first and foremost, I would say it definitely was my timetable. I had my own timetable. I followed as closely and as rigorously as possible. And what it meant is It just helped me to stay more productive because I know what I have to do during this time. I do it, and even if it happens that I do not follow it perfectly, it's still better than like 60% of the time. Also, when it comes to this timetable, what I found to be useful is also keeping your body healthy, doing fitness, going to the gym, running, like anything connected with sport, getting enough sleep. It was one of my biggest mistakes that I kind of sacrificed a lot of my sleep for it. It could happen so that I slept for like 4 hours only and 6 hours max, which was horrible experience. I was not able to study, even though, well, I had to wake up at 4 a.m. each morning, but not all the time I could be productive because I could be fatigued, sleep deprived, and this way you cannot get work in a focused, mindful, and disciplined manner. So yeah, it's definitely sleep. I would say sacrifice anything which prevents you from going to bed, even if it's like extra hour of preparation for the exam, because otherwise you won't be able to do it next day. It's better to
I
sacrifice
agree
it
on
now
that.
than
I agree
just
on
like
that.
being unable to do anything next day. Yeah, it's definitely sleep, fitness, some supplements, just like also for your lifestyle, like vitamin D and stuff. I didn't take it this year, but it's also pretty useful for your mood in order to stay consistent.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's important because you want to study some hours per day, more likely than not. Especially if you're still in high school, you will study many hours per day. And your sleep helps you study more efficiently. You want to actually be able to recall these materials in the future and to actually save them into your long-term memory. And this is what happens during sleep. So when you're sleep deprived, you're losing the information you have just studied. And that's, of course, stupid because you're not studying because you just want to get the work done, but because you want to remember the informations. So prioritize sleep, prioritize health, as you just said, and potentially you can boost yourself a little bit. What did you do? Like, did you drink a lot of coffee or did you have any?
Yeah, I'm actually huge on coffee and I'm still drinking it, even though it's pretty controversial whether or not it's good for you. But I personally keep it in my lifestyle and help me a lot. And I, of course, don't want to force it on anybody to like take it. It worked for me to stay focused, to wake up in the morning. So I definitely can say that caffeine helped me a lot. And it's the reason why I could wake up in the morning. Another supplement I took was the L-theanine, which helped me to stay calm during the study sessions and the exam overall. Yeah.
It's
Are
not
we talking?
necessary. It's not necessary to take, of course. It's just what
Yeah,
you did.
it's not necessary to take it. I'm just saying, like, as a recommendation to take L-theanine with caffeine in order to achieve clarity of mind and focus with no anxiety. It doesn't work for everyone. You have to try it in order to find out whether or not it works. It worked for me. And though the only mistake I've made, which I want to bring up, is that on the exam day, I took L-theanine, but instead of pure caffeine, meaning like espresso or some coffee, I took energy drink. And the L-theanine does not work with energy drinks well, even if L-theanine works for you in general, because it has a lot of substances, a lot of artificial contents, which just like they do not work well together. And it's the reason why I was even more anxious than I would have been with just pure caffeine. So yeah, if you want to pursue this path of taking L-theanine, please do not take it with energy drink, because I thought that I could have just failed this exam because of this, because everything was pretty simple, easy. I knew all the answers, but I was extremely anxious and just felt this overwhelming sense of jitterness, which kind of made me lose some points.
But yeah, this is not a recommendation from my side. I don't do caffeine at all, and I don't take these supplements. You said you take it to be more focused, to be awake, to be less anxious. And these are the benefits that come from a healthy sleep schedule. And this is something we agree upon for sure, I
Yep,
guess.
that's
No
for sure.
bad side effects to that. So you
Yep.
mentioned your biggest mistake, sacrificing sleep and fitness. It's important for studying, even if it's not studying itself, but Yeah, I agree upon that as well. It's one of my highest priorities in life. I'm looking on the agenda. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is the elimination of indirect stress factors. What
Yeah, that's what
were
I
the
accidentally
major
mentioned
ones for
before.
you?
Well, so as I previously stated, I'm originally from Ukraine. I'm Ukrainian citizen, meaning I'm a third country individual, which means that there are extra steps for me in order to move to Vienna. It's much simpler for EU citizens to move to Austria within the EU than for third country individuals. And the reason I'm saying that is that it can turn out pretty overwhelming at the time when you find out that you're being accepted to the EU to find housing, to gather all the documents for visas. And I see quite some, I would say, a couple of people struggling with it right now.
Too many, for sure.
I don't know, around 5 people. Like, I'm just saying there is a possibility that you will struggle with housing or with some documents that are missing for you. Is the reason why I would recommend to do it as early as possible, because even though it is not connected with the exam success directly, it still contributes to the stress you have, because it can happen so that you're preparing for an exam and you get some thought, okay, what about housing? Will I be able to get housing in time? So it's the reason why you should do everything in advance so that you can, so that your head is completely clear. Because another advantage I had during the BBE exam is that I had all the exams at school done. I got my housing agreement. I also kind of settled all the questions with documents regarding visa, temporary protection, residence permit, and so on. So my final take on this is that when it comes to housing, you should apply as early as possible.
All the documents in general, right?
Yeah, documents can come a bit later. Like, I think the perfect timing for thinking about documents is when the registration opens. I mean, registration for the BB exam in March. I suppose it's enough time to just kind of have a plan how you're gonna gather these documents, because it happened so to me that I was not in my home country, yet I had to retrieve some documents from Ukraine. And as you may know, it's not pretty easy and it's not safe to do it just directly. I can't just go there and do it. We had to hire lawyers. We had to use some translation agencies to do it. And some people may be in the similar situation where they are not in their home country, but rather in some other country, but they had to retrieve the documents for Austria. It's the reason why I would advise to look into the documents requirements, your situation about that in March, just to like know what you're gonna do. Because if you do it after the exam, it may be too late. Maybe too late, and it will be really
Especially with the translations and certifications. Still,
I mean,
it's
translation is not as bad as the thing which is called, if I'm not mistaken, full consul legalization, because there are some countries where you can just put apostille. It's like a simpler way of legalizing a document for EU and Austria. It was the case for Ukraine, but there are other countries which are usually, if I'm not mistaken, not in Europe, where full consul legalization is required, which can take months. It can take even 3 months, 2 months, because it has to be also delivered to Austria in order to be legalized. And if you realize it too late after the exam, after you got admitted, it's too late. And there is almost no way to do it in time. I mean, there is probably a way, but I would say there is a low chance that you make it on time. So it's probably the best to do it as early as possible. I mean, to have some plan, to lay up some plan, and just to order documents upon your admission to VU, so that you just don't do it and wait. And when it comes to housing, you should do it even earlier, because housing is pretty competitive, especially in Vienna.
cheap housing.
Especially cheap
Yeah.
housing, because just to let you know, I applied in January for housing in September, so 9 months in advance, and still I did not receive the offer immediately. I still was in the waiting list. There were still people who applied even earlier than I did. So it's the reason why you should do it in winter ideally, because otherwise, if you do it in summer or even in spring, there are less options that are cheap and affordable, and you're probably gonna pay way more, around like 700 euros per month for housing. And just for comparison, I'm paying only 300, which is more than 2 times less. And
In
I'm
your
living
favorite
literally
district.
in my favorite district, in the 8th district. It's literally the center of Vienna. And the reason why I was able to get it is because I applied early. Otherwise, I lived on the outskirts for like 700 euros and still with a low chance to get it. Yeah, it also helped me during the exam because I knew I have the housing, have the documents ready. The only thing I have to think about is the exam and nothing else.
No
So,
distractions.
yeah, no distractions and
In
no
a
additional
nutshell,
stress.
made yourself an overview of the steps you need to take regarding housing, regarding documents, residence permits, whatever, and then you execute it as soon as possible, right?
Yep,
It's
exactly.
just like with the preparation. Start in advance and you will minimize stress. Very important.
Yeah, that's essential. That's pretty crucial for your success moving to Vienna. Also, one thing I want to mention is that another thing you want to consider, except for tuition fee, if you're applying for residence permit, is the proof of sufficient funds. So if you're applying for residence permit, you have to put a certain amount of funds to your account to prove that you can live in Vienna and that you won't be homeless. And this amount is around 9,000 euros. And you should consider this amount alongside the tuition fee you're paying. Because I had pretty flawed expectations about the money I'm going to spend. And probably most people do, is that you're just going to pay the tuition fee. And that's pretty much it. And also living expenses. But you also have to deposit this amount in advance, this 9,000. And I mean, it's quite a lot of money, I must admit. And you just have to find a way to have it in advance when you're applying for a visa. And also consider whether or not you're okay with it. And I also must highlight that it's not that much compared to other countries in EU. For example, in Netherlands, it's around 11,000. In Switzerland, 30,000. Yet you have to consider alongside your tuition fees in order to have your finance right, in order
It
to
might
not
be a deal
struggle as
breaker in
much.
the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're close to 1 hour already. Maybe we come to an end pretty soon. And my last question to you is, if you would start all over again, what would you do differently?
The only thing I would change is my approach to my lifestyle. I wouldn't sacrifice sleep as much because my preparation and all the other stuff, which I mentioned, highlighted, it was, I mean, pretty refined, pretty perfect enough to qualify for the WU bachelor program. Yet my lifestyle is really the thing I missed out on a lot. Well, I lost my gains in the gym. I was sleep deprived. That's the reason why I missed some of the hours of work. I wasn't able to do it as efficiently. So I would honestly just sacrifice some hours of studies at night just to go to sleep. Just because even though if it's the preparation, the core activity, which gets me to my core purpose this year, it's still not as important as your sleep, because it's the reason why sometimes I was demotivated to continue because I was exhausted. So it's definitely sleep. And the second point is not mixing my energy drink with the L-theanine. I would have done much better. I reckon I would have done much better had I done it.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, thank you very much for sharing your insights. Thanks to you, we can make the BBE Insider Preparation Program even more better based on your feedback, based on the feedback from anyone else, and helping other people to reach their goal, just like you reached your goal. Just like you will start your study degree in a couple of days, and I'm very excited to see that everything turned out as expected. Thank you very much for sharing your insights and spending the time with me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me to this interview. I'm happy to give this feedback and just insights about the preparation, and I'm honored to do it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Then see you around, see you on campus, and
See
talk
ya.
to you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.